Today, we're jumping into a really personal account of a journey to one of the most sacred and remote places on the entire planet, Tibet's Mount Kailash. And this really sets the stage for the whole story. The central question is right there. What does it actually take to get to the roof of the world? And not just get there, but to complete a sacred Kora. That's the ritual walk, the pilgrimage around a holy site. So the journey kicks off with this just incredible image. Picture a flawless half moon in a perfect blue sky. That's the scene as our author leaves the rolling hills of Ravu. And the goal? Well, it sounds simple, but it's absolutely monumental. Get to Mount Kailash and complete the Kora. And right off the bat, you get this feeling that anything can happen on this trip. Their guide, a guy named Satan, he suggests a shortcut. Sounds great, right? But it comes with this huge catch. He's like, "No problem, sir." But his whole promise hinges on one little word, if. If there is no snow. Man, you can just feel how much is riding on that single condition. So they're crossing this vast plateau, the Chengtang, and at first glance, you might think it's just empty. But it's not. It's actually teeming with life. They spot gazelles, and then this huge herd of wild ass. They're called kyang. Imagine them just galloping all together, kicking up these huge plumes of dust into the cold, crisp air. What a sight. But the wild herds aren't even the most memorable creatures out here. Nope, the real residents to watch out for are the fierce guardians of the nomads' tents. And these guardians, they're Tibetan mastiffs, and they just appear out of nowhere. The author calls them shaggy monsters, blacker than the darkest night. And as the car gets close, they just explode into action. I mean, they're not just running, they are speeding directly at the car, described as being like a bullet from a gun. It's insane. And they're completely fearless. They shoot right into the path of the vehicle, forcing the driver to swerve like crazy. And in that one terrifying moment, you get it. You totally understand why these dogs are legendary, why they were brought as tribute along the Silk Road all the way to China's imperial courts. These are not your average guard dogs. Okay, so after that pretty intense run-in with the dogs, the threat changes. It's no longer something you can see chasing you. The challenge becomes internal, way more insidious. As they start climbing, as the road gets steeper, the real opponent becomes the very air they're trying to breathe. All right, check this out. At 5,210 meters, bam, they hit their first big roadblock. It's a patch of snow and ice completely blocking the way. And the only way to get past it, everybody has to get out of the car and literally throw handfuls of dirt on the ice just to give the tires something to grip onto. Then they keep climbing. And by 5,400 meters, the altitude is really starting to hit. The author's head is just throbbing horribly. You can feel the pressure building. And finally, they make it to the top of the pass. We're talking a staggering 5,515 meters up. It's marked by this pile of rocks covered in prayer flags, and they do the traditional walk around it before starting the long, dizzying trip back down. You'd think after battling the elements like that, getting to a town would be a huge relief, right? Well, not always. The challenges of nature start to fade, and they're replaced by, well, the disappointments of civilization. And this next part is such a perfect example of legend versus reality. The author finally gets to Lake Manasaravar. I mean, this place is legendary. It's supposed to be the source of 4 of India's great rivers, a place so holy it literally moved a monk to tears. But the town on its shores, this place called Hor, it's a total shock. It's just a grim, miserable little town. No plants, just dust, rocks, and piles of garbage. It's this massive letdown that really makes you think about how the idea of a place can be so different from what it's actually like. From there, the journey moves on to Darchen, which is the actual starting point for the Kora. But this is where everything, the long journey, the insane altitude, it all comes to a head. And it leads to this absolutely terrifying health crisis in the middle of a long, sleepless night. So imagine this. It's the middle of the night, and the crisis begins. But it's not like he's gasping for air. It's this really weird, unsettling feeling. He says his chest felt strangely heavy, so heavy that he had to sit up. And this was something totally different, not your usual altitude sickness. He describes it as a feeling that he was simply not allowed to go to sleep. Just think about that for a second. And then came the really chilling part. A little voice inside his head just said that if he did go to sleep, he might never wake up again. Can you imagine? He spends the rest of the night just sitting bolt upright, absolutely terrified to even close his eyes. It's the ultimate fight for survival, not against a mountain or the cold, but against his own body. So the next morning, his guide, Tsitan, rushes him to the Darchen Medical College. A Tibetan doctor takes one look at him, diagnoses a cold mixed with the effects of altitude, and prescribes a 5-day course of traditional medicine. And get this, it's not pills in a bottle. It's this brown powder and tiny pellets, all wrapped up in 15 little twists of paper. And you know what? It works. It actually works. That night, he says he slept soundly, like a log, not a dead man. The relief must have been incredible. Okay, so he's finally feeling better, health is restored, but of course, a new problem pops up. His guide, Chitan, figures, okay, he's not going to die, so he heads back to Lhasa, and now our author is completely alone in Darchen. To make matters worse, it's too early in the season for the pilgrimage, so there's literally no one else around. He is well and truly stuck. So there he is, sitting in the town's only cafe, thinking about how grim his situation is, when this guy named Norbu sits down at his table. Turns out Norbu is Tibetan, but he's an academic working in Beijing. And what are the odds he's also in Darchen to do the Kora? The thing is, he studied the pilgrimage for years, but has never actually done it himself. And he's pretty upfront about the fact that he's, in his own words, fat and totally ill-equipped for the whole thing. And when Norbu hears that our author is also an academic there for the very same reason, his whole face just lights up. You can just see the gears turning. He sees a perfect solution for both of them. He gets all excited and says, "We could be a team." And then he jokes, "Two academics who have escaped from the library." It's this perfect, hopeful moment. And that's where we leave it. Not at an end, but at a brand new beginning. This completely unlikely team is formed, born out of a shared goal and, let's be honest, a little bit of desperation. You've got these two academics who both admit they are completely unprepared for what's ahead, but they're suddenly filled with this shared hope. You know, after all the struggles, the landscape, the dogs, the altitude, his own body failing him, you have to wonder, maybe this is what the whole journey was really about. Could this be the start of the real pilgrimage?